So, I was doing my laundry today, and nothing was out of the ordinary until I started taking things out of the dryer after I had already washed and dried them.
Ooh.
And I looked, and there was this marker, because we use markers at work. Just this uncapped marker sitting in the dryer, and I was like, this is going to be a problem, isn't it? Pulled out all of my clothes, and almost all of them had marker stains on them. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. So all of my work shirts and all of the shirts that I wear most frequently, most of my pairs of shorts, a lot of my socks and underwear, I was like, you've got to be joking. Everything is stained, like, beyond repair. So Mom says she's going to send me some stain remover. It's like, well, I don't know if it'll work, and I can't just, like, wait that long to wear clothes. So I go to Target, and I'm like, Grandma sent me a gift card to Target for my birthday. I'll go to Target, and I'll go buy some clothes. While I'm there, I think I'll buy myself a bottle of wine. I go there, pick up a whole bunch of clothes, pick up a bottle of wine, go to the checkout. The lady scans all my clothes, gets to the bottle of wine, asks to see my ID. I show her my ID, and she puts my birthday in wrong. And so then the Target system tells her, no, this customer is too young to buy alcohol. She calls her coworker over, and her coworker's like, well, did you check the ID? Yeah, she's old enough, but I put the number in wrong. So then they had to ring up my items in 2 different transactions, and the whole reason I went to Target over any other store was because Grandma had sent me a gift card, and I forgot to use the gift card because I was so flustered with them getting my ID wrong. So I spent like $100 at Target forgetting that I had this gift card, and I got into the parking lot. I was like, wait a minute. So now I still have this gift card, and I had to go buy a whole bunch of clothes that I didn't even use the gift card on that I had intended to use.
Yep. It happens.
Yeah, so now most of the clothes that I wear are stained, so I just got as many clothes as I could convince myself to buy. And then I had to go to, while I was in the wine aisle at Target, I was like, oh, there's a drink that we had in Italy that I can make. Let me grab a bottle of wine because that uses a particular kind of wine. And then I couldn't find the liqueur that goes in the drink, so I had to go to Hy-Vee. And the only bottle of the liqueur that they had was $40. So I spent $40 on a bottle of liqueur for a drink that I hope turns out right.
Why continue the pursuit at that point then?
Because I had already bought the wine.
Can you not just drink the wine?
I don't like the wine on its own. It's a dry wine. And I prefer sweet.
That doesn't mean anything to me.
Sweet and dry are opposites in wine world, and I like sweet wines.
Well, hopefully your drink works out. Drinks. Hopefully it was a big bottle of whatever for $40.
It's a fifth, so it's a normal size bottle of alcohol, 750 milliliters. I hope I like it. It was the only brand of it I could find.
Wow.
I had to Google what the alcohol even looked like. Just standing in the middle of Hy-Vee with my phone in my hand like a nerd. Well, like I had to Google what the bottle looks like because there were so many options. I was like, none of these are right, are they? Just the one. So I have the liqueur freezing right now, so when we're done here, I can go try and make a drink.
Ugh. I've been tired for a while today, but now it's just starting to hit with the yawning. I've been up late a number of nights in a row writing stuff about current events.
I couldn't sleep on Friday night, so I read one of your blog posts. I still couldn't sleep afterwards. It sounded like I used your blog post to fall asleep. It was just a stop on the way to Sleep Town.
Sleep Town?
Yep.
I don't know that I've ever heard it referred to as Sleep Town.
Yeah, I couldn't sleep Friday night. I got about an hour and a half of sleep before I woke up to go to work.
What did I get on Friday? Probably 6 hours. I've been getting like 6 hours a night. And not falling asleep again. But I've also been like up quite late. So I'm like waking up at a normal time, more or less, but without much sleep.
Yeah, so Saturday night I got like 13 hours of sleep to try and make up for the sleep that I missed.
I've never been able to do sleep like that.
I did it in 2 blocks. Took a nap after work and then woke up, checked my socials, and went back to bed.
Checked my socials.
There's a lot going on them.
Indeed. The only reason I put the blog posts on the blog I did is because it's still connected to my Facebook and Twitter pages that I don't have access to anymore. So it'll still post to whoever follows those pages.
Yeah, that's how I saw it. Twitter.
Which one did you read?
I'm afraid of the police.
You were reading for a while then.
I mean, it was like 2 in the morning, and I didn't have anything else to do because I couldn't sleep.
It's also 4,500 words.
I've had to read a lot for some of my classes these past couple of years, switching from the sciences to the liberal arts.
Yeah. In seminary, our requirements, we had reading requirements and writing requirements per credit hour. So you had, each class was required to have 8 to 10 pages of writing and 500 to 600 pages of reading per credit hour. And I have not written, in the last week, I have written as much as I would have my last semester in seminary. Because I put out, the first one, the letter to the president, was long. So I tried to just put it into, like, the White House has a form on their website where you can submit letters or comments or whatever. And my comments were 2.5 times the approved length of what would fit in the comment box. So it was that long, however long that was. And then I wrote one to the governor that I didn't post online. I just mailed. And then I wrote that post you read. And then I posted another one today. That was another 1,800 words, so another 6 pages. So all told, I wrote like 25 pages worth of content this week. All about what's going on.
The most writing I've done recently is I had a class this past semester where we had to do everything single-spaced. And for our final was 6 to 8 pages single-spaced writing. I wrote like 6.5 or 7. And I wrote it from the span of like 7 p.m. to 3 a.m. I got an A on it. I got like a 390 out of 400 on it.
Out of 400?
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't even make any sense.
The class was maybe 1,000. So I think it was 40% of... No, that doesn't sound right. Yeah. Either way, I got an A on that, which made me get an A in the class. And our prof sent me an email a couple days after final grades were in, thanking me for my work in the class because I was a standout student.
Did you feel like a standout student?
I mean, yeah. I think I did a good job in the class.
Yeah, there's definitely a difference between work you do in a STEM field class or in a humanities class. Much more writing. Much fewer correct answers.
Yeah, STEM was something. The physics classes were... I guess I'm still in astronomy classes, which are basically just physics. The actual physics listed courses were hard for me.
Yeah. I probably would have dropped it after the first semester, but I had a department scholarship, so I felt like I needed to do the full year of physics. But the final in my physics class, I finished first out of everyone taking it because I did less than half of it, because that's all I understood.
Yeah, in like Intro Physics 2, our exam grades, the average was like a 30 out of 50, and I would get like a 20 and be proud of myself.
Physics graded on a different scale than any other class I took, because the A's like dropped down into the 80s, and then the B's dropped way down in the 70s, and it's just like it was just different. And then I think as the physics classes got harder, the grading like moved further and further down to like include larger quantities of percentages.
In my astronomy class last semester, I ended with like a 73%, and it was a B.
Yeah.
And then I took it pass fail anyways because I had the option to do that.
I don't think I ever had any classes that were just pass fail. Well, that's not true. I had, but they were never like super consequential. There was like one credit class that was pass fail. That was a requirement.
Because of the coronavirus, all classes that had gotten switched to online, so anything that was impacted by the online switch, you had the option to take them pass fail without it negatively impacting you, well, to some extent. So I took biology and astronomy pass fail, so I could get a 4.0 this semester.
Well done. I think I did that one semester. My final semester.
Yeah, well, I figured once I make the switch, the astronomy class and the biology class aren't really gonna like be important towards my curriculum. I mean, I'm still planning to get the astro minor, but I mean, I'll still get it even though I took the class pass fail. So what are we talking about today? Donkey.
Well, I can't do an Eddie Murphy impression. It's not gonna happen.
5 minutes. You just be quiet for 5 minutes. Are we there yet? Yes.
We can't clear that. I don't even know how we would. That's why our music is a freaking drum beat. Because that's what I understand how to make.
I mean, I don't think whoever wrote that song is going to come copyright us, because I don't think they're going to want to claim that what I just sang as their song.
I mean, we've got 36 whole listens across, this is episode 7 now, so across 6, or this is episode 6, which is the 7th episode. That might be one of the worst decisions I ever made, was to start counting at 0 instead of 1. The reason I did it was because, as you remember, the first episode we made, we talked about coronavirus and forgot to introduce ourselves or introduce the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And so since I knew we were going to be doing that in the second one, I decided to make that episode 1 so that if people wanted to start on number 1, they could start there. But then if people are interested enough, they're going to go back and listen to the actual first one anyway. So I don't know. I probably could just change it, but I don't know how that would affect. Well, for starters, it would affect the YouTube videos because I have the episode number in the actual video. So that would be problematic. But then, like, I don't know if it would update in podcast players. So we're stuck with this numerical system.
I mean, it doesn't affect me at all. I'm not doing a whole lot of behind-the-scenes work.
But like, I guess that kind of ties into where I thought about starting today. Because back on when we were at Dad's for his birthday and he was talking to us again about the podcast, he suggested that we should start... Okay.
Sorry, my feet are asleep. I'm trying to get more comfortable. Like I said, I'm sitting in a closet.
That was quite the tumble. Don't worry, I feel fine.
One time I fell and hurt myself when I was in 7th grade. So Mom wrote a letter to my gym teacher to let her know that I couldn't participate in something for a little bit. And her wording of it was, Elaina took a tumble and she'll need to sit out for these next couple days. And then my friends made fun of me for the entire year for Mom writing, took a tumble, in this letter to my gym teacher.
Wasn't there an old viral YouTube video with like a name, someone's name takes a tumble, and is like a person who tries standing on a chair and then she just falls off the chair?
I have no idea. Let me
it
go
was,
to YouTube right now, I guess.
It was super big in like 2009. This has nothing to do with anything. We're getting sidetracked.
Takes a tumble.
Here.
Scarlet takes a tumble. 31 million
that's
views.
A song. Yep. That's it.
Oh, I've seen this. The lady standing on the table.
Yep. And then just eats it. 31 million views. Amazing. So this would have been senior year of high school when this came out for me. And you would have been
8.
9. I'm waiting for this. This video is longer than I remember it being. Oh, here it comes. And
there she goes. She's rolling on the floor.
It was funnier 12 years ago.
Probably be funnier with sound too. I'm not listening to any sound.
But anyways, where did I leave off? We were talking with Dad. He was making suggestions. But related to us doing the overall introduction, his suggestion was that we introduce ourselves in every episode. But like the podcast that I listen to most closely, which I guess is only 2 of them, but either way, they don't do that. It's just like you come to the podcast and you either, I guess, figure it out or you know who the people are. Or in our case, since we have Eric and Elaina, I think from our voices you can probably figure out which one is Eric and which one is Elaina.
I'm Eric. It sounds so natural. My name is Eric.
Try. This voice doesn't go higher. At least not very well.
This voice doesn't go higher.
It was just like I had been thinking about, well, 2 things. The first thing, since I wrote it down, I'll talk about it. His suggestion made me think about the early days, or what I know of the early days of Sports Center on ESPN. So at one point, I don't know if it would have been the early 90s or whatever, I know the story from an interview that a guy named Dan Patrick did, and he used to be an ESPN anchor, and now he has his own radio show. And he talked about him and Keith Olbermann were like the 2 anchors of Sports Center. And when Sports Center is live, like recounting the day's news, like sports news and highlights and whatever, it's on at like 1, 2, 3 in the morning. So there's like no oversight from like executives at the network during that period of time. So the 2 of them would just kind of screw around and have fun as they're doing the highlights. And then apparently at one point they got called into an executive's office, and the executive's going off about all these different things that they have to do. And then one of the things, and every time that you go to break, you need to say, "This is Sports Center," because they'd been calling it like, they'd like been giving different nicknames to the program. So just as a way to kind of get back at them and be sarcastic a little bit, they just like overemphasize the thing. And they'd just be like, going to break, "This is Sports Center." But then like it turned into an entire marketing campaign. They're like all these "This is Sports Center" commercials that are just sort of wacky commercials, but they've been going on for 25 years now or something. But it just made me think of my initial reaction when getting that piece of feedback was to just like overemphasize every time, like, "I am Eric and you are Elaina." And that's like, I guess that's not who we are as people.
I think we would lose some of our 36 views.
Well, those are there to stay, but
no, we'd have negative views.
5 estimated listeners to 3 estimated listeners thus far. or estimated audience size. The average number of plays each of your episodes gets within 30 days after publishing. This is a stand-in for your current audience size. So that was like the first reaction I had to that. But then I had kind of been interested in talking about success, or like what success means in a bunch of different areas. One of them being like the podcast. And I feel like a lot of times success is defined by that, like audience size or view numbers, because it just like is the ever present, like that's what the number is that shows up at the bottom of a YouTube video or whatever. That's what people who are advertisers apparently look at. Not that we would know, because we have an audience size of 3. But it's like, at what point, I wondered as we like started this podcast, when would I consider, or what would I consider to be success in terms of audience size? And like, in part, I feel like the podcast is a success no matter what, because we actually like decided to actually start doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Because I texted you or sent you a message that I started our YouTube channel a year and a half ago, and then we didn't start making videos until 3 months ago. It's like we had been talking about it for so long, going back and forth, and like, at least on my end, not starting because of the technical difficulties that there would have been trying to do it without having Wi-Fi, and you not having a microphone when we talked about starting. And it's like, finally we started, and then you had your mic issues for a couple episodes, so you were just using your computer audio. It's like, it sounded fine enough that we could have been doing this for a year and a half before we actually started anyways. So like, the fact that we're, to go back to the point, the fact that we're doing it at all is successful. But then like, in terms of what this podcast is, like, another reason to think it's successful is just because we're making the podcast that we want to make. And like, we're talking about the things we want to talk about. And like, in part, the reason to start the podcast was to do something together. So in that way, I think the podcast is also successful. But with all those things being said, I'm still a little bit of a numbers person, or maybe a lot of bit of a numbers person. So I've thought about what numerical success would look like. And it's like, I don't even know how to conceptualize what that would be, because we're not promoting this at all. I mean, not really.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not, like, how do we reach more listeners without trying to promote? So, and it's like, it's not a podcast that would necessarily warrant, like, I don't understand how people find podcasts in general, because I'm not one who's like super adventurous in finding podcasts. The podcasts I listen to are mostly people I watched on YouTube who have podcasts. And so it's like, it's hard to think about numerical success. That said, I do feel like there is a number, or there are numbers, and it's like, I feel like 100 people listening on a regular basis would be like wildly successful for what we're doing.
Yeah, I remember I started my YouTube channel as a school project. I had complete freedom in what I wanted to do. I just had to like record my progress in some way and show that I actually did something. And at the beginning of the school year, we had to like set a goal for our project, and my goal was, when I upload a YouTube video, have someone other than myself watch it. And my teacher, who was grading my project, said that that wasn't a solid metric. But I didn't feel like I should set a number on it and just be so focused on gaining subscribers, because it wasn't the like numbers that I super cared about. It was getting some sort of engagement from people.
Yeah.
And so then I wanted to say something like have 100 subscribers by the end of the year. And then I didn't have 100 subscribers, but I still felt successful because people other than myself had watched my videos and commented and talked to me about them.
Yeah. And we should have someone keep a track of how many times I bring up the Vlogbrothers in an episode of this thing. But to go back to something the Vlogbrothers were talking about recently, it's like a huge part of what they felt was their success on YouTube, especially early, was their like viewer engagement, and that they had a community. So while they were getting a couple hundred views that first year that they were making making their YouTube channel, like they had an engaged community that was doing stuff together, like online. And so they felt successful, and then their numbers took off as time went on. And then after John Green wrote one of the most successful books of the last decade, and then it's just kind of stuck around. But it's like, if we can have that sort of engagement, I guess, which at the moment is Dad making suggestions.
Yep. One of my YouTube videos went wildly popular. I wonder, let me pull up the stats right now to...
Like tens of thousands of views.
Yeah, and I like looking back, it's such a bad video. And then it's on a certain theme, and like the rest of the videos on those themes have also gone pretty wild. So my most viewed video on YouTube has 78,000 views.
That is a lot more than mine. And yours was actually like a thing that you made. Like I'm pretty sure my most...
It's the thunderstorm, right?
No, it's when we went to when the Gophers beat Wisconsin, and we went down to the U and watched and listened to them when they came back. So the University of Minnesota and the University of Wisconsin football teams are big rivals, and they play each other every year. They're in the same conference division, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, for people who don't know. But Minnesota hadn't beaten Wisconsin for 15 years until not this past season that just finished, but the season before. They beat them in Madison, in Wisconsin. And so it was a big deal because it hadn't happened for as long as it was. And so some people gathered at the U of M to like welcome the team home. And I filmed the entire, like, it says 4 minutes and 54 seconds, the entire speech that the head coach gave when they came back. And I put that on YouTube. And that has 4.8 thousand views. And that's my most viewed video. And then it's a video I made for my writing internship I had, which I told the organization they could continue to use. And so they put it on their website. And so that's where that got traffic. Then it's the Crazy Storm. And then it's like the same content from the Minnesota video, the football video, but that I like cut together as a highlight reel of the event.
Yeah, I don't even understand where these views came from on my video.
Yeah, or how it spreads. Because like I knew that there would be a number of people watching the coach speaking because I put it up that same night, just the raw footage, so just him talking, and I just said raw footage, PJ Fleck addresses fans, and so on and so forth. So there was going to be stuff right away from that, and then as time went on, whenever someone looks up Minnesota versus Wisconsin, there's potential for that video to come up. But other than that, I don't know how any of this other stuff gets viewed. Which, case in point, the blog post you read of mine that had the video attached to it, that video currently has 0 views. And the video that I made on my YouTube channel announcing this podcast for a long time had 0 views. And there is nothing more humbling than having a video on YouTube for a month that has 0 views, especially when you have subscribers. Like, I don't have many subscribers. I have 22 subscribers, but that's 22 people who potentially would have seen that I posted a video. Granted, it had been over a year since I'd posted a video before, but there should still be some potential that it shows up. This, I think, is why one of the reasons why having social media is beneficial. It's like a place, once you have people following you on social media, it's a place for that content to be shown to people and then potentially shared, which is why I've been posting blog posts in the last week on the blog that is still connected to social media, so that maybe someone will read it. Because I also have my own website, but it doesn't, like, there's nowhere for people to get pulled, like, it doesn't pull traffic from anywhere because it's basically just a portfolio. So, like, there's no one is, people would have to seek that website out versus me being able to show my content to people.
Yeah, on the root beer blog that I ran with Dad, the only reason we got any engagement was because we would tag like root beer on every post, and then people who were seeking out posts about root beer found them. We found just this strange community of middle-aged men who love root beer.
Half of you fit in with that.
Surprise, it's not me.
That's like my brief foray into Tumblr. My most liked Tumblr post was from Las Vegas, and I tagged Las Vegas, and that's the only reason I think people saw it. It was a picture of, I don't remember if I posted the picture separately or not, because I took 2 that I put on there. But the picture I remember getting likes was just a picture of a sign that said Las Vegas Boulevard. Like, just a picture of a street sign that had one of the hotels in the background.
Yeah, that's aesthetic for Stumbler. Tumblr.
That's a testic for Frumblr. Yep. And now I still have an Instagram page. I don't know why I made it, but I have it. And since I didn't use it, I didn't like delete it or anything. So that's where I've posted the 2 posts I have related to what's going on today for the 31 people who for some reason followed me 2 years ago and are still following me.
Yeah, I've never bothered with Instagram. Seems like a place to boast about yourself, and I've never really taken pictures of myself, and I don't really like boasting about myself or my life.
Yeah, that was a lot why I didn't use Instagram, because I wasn't posting, for the most part, I wasn't posting pictures. At least not that were quote-unquote Instagram worthy.
If I used it, it would just be like pictures of the sunset or the sunrise, which wouldn't get the most engagement. So I can like see on Facebook how pictures of my selfies get more likes than my sunsets or sunrises. It's like, just look at the sunset, isn't it pretty? Wouldn't you rather look at that? You all know what my face looks like. You've seen me.
But then, success, I guess, I've thought more about success beyond just the podcast or stuff online. It's just like, what does success look like in my personal life as well? And like, what does it look like vocationally? And what does it look like with, any other piece of anything I've done or will do, I guess. Do you have any, or I should say, I guess a lot of times this comes from successes could be measured by like goals and achieving goals, and I haven't been one to make goals of that nature, I guess. So, and I guess in that way, it's hard to measure what success would look like, and I've been like searching for what that means anyways. This was the thing I talked about in my last therapy session, was about what we've talked about before, thriving versus surviving.
Mm-hmm.
And like what that looks like, and the work that needs to go in order for that to happen.
Yeah, I don't set a whole lot of goals. I mean, I made some New Year's resolutions this year, and I've noticed that almost all of them are surrounding money. So I guess that I want to view success in some sort of financial stability. So like I've met one of my savings goals towards a car, and I feel successful about that. Still have a long way to go if I want to get a new car. And like I've been able to pay my rent and still have money for groceries and gas. Consider that successful. Paid off one of my several thousands of dollars in student loans. I feel successful about that. I got an email from the loan company that was like, "Congratulations, you paid off one of your loans. Just get rid of them."
What does that feel like? What will that feel like?
Well, I
guess
mean,
I'll let you know in 20 years.
that loan, I think that loan, when I took it out, it was like
Ka-ching!
dollars.
Yeah, I had some bigger loans than that.
Yeah, well, I mean, those are the ones that are in my name, and all of the ones that Dad
Yeah.
signed on are
Yeah. Ka-ching!
dollars a piece. I am
Ka-ching!
dollars in debt.
What
If anyone wants to sponsor the podcast.
What I wouldn't give to have that small of a number.
I still got time to go.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna make it up to,
Ka-ching!
and then if I go to grad school, more.
Yeah, I would suggest not going right away. But I think that's a conversation for another time.
Yeah, well, I mean, the problem with going along with success is like I can't set goals because I don't know what I'm doing. Like I don't know what I want to do.
Yeah, I've had that issue for a long time, and a lot of it is, I should say, not wanting to cut any options off.
That's me.
because I want to have all of my options still available. But then that is limiting, because then I'm not making any decisions.
Yeah, there was one point this past school year where I thought I was gonna oh, Dad's trying to call me. Sorry, Dad. Decline. There was one point this past school year where I was like, I can get my animal ecology degree and be ready for vet school if I decide I want to be a vet. And I can also get a second major in women's and gender studies if I decide I want to do something in that field. And I can still get my astronomy minor. Oh, and then if I'm getting my astronomy minor, I might as well get a physics minor. Oh, and then if I get the physics minor, I'm just close enough to a math minor. So 2 majors and 3 minors. And then I was just like, what am I thinking?
Yep. Yeah, I probably looked at my 4-year plan and at the school catalog at least once a week, every week for the last 2 years I was in college, trying to completely maximize everything I was doing. And I was probably in the registrar's office at least once a semester, every semester I was in college. And ultimately,
I've never gone to the registrar's office.
Ultimately, I look back at it, and there are some decisions where I'm like, I maybe should have made different decisions about what I studied, because I wasn't as interested in some of the things I did than I could have been in other things. Like, I was just working to max. So, like, I did a study abroad trip in Guatemala, and then added a major called Third World Studies, which, like, it had to be completed with another major. You couldn't do it as its own major. But the only reason I added it is because half of the major was covered by the classes I did in Guatemala. And then I just had to, like, supplement one or two classes a semester from that point in time. But it's like there are other things I could have done other than that I actually would have been interested in. Or even related to just doing this. Like I always wanted to be on the radio. Like even now when I listen to like sports talk radio, it's like I just wanted to be on the radio and like have a radio like it's much like a lot of what I want to do is commentary type stuff. Like that's these blog posts I'm writing is commentary on what's happening, which is difficult to write when what I've been trained in is a lot more academic writing and like having facts, citing facts like in a very specific way. Whereas like in a blog post you can like refer to things without needing to cite them to Rabian or whatever your citation system of choice is. I don't remember how I got there, but yeah, making choices. And then the other part of it that I'm not good at is being assertive enough to actually follow the plan, or to not just it's not enough to just like make the goals. Then you need to make like sub goals that you can achieve on your way to the actual goals that are bigger. I was just at Emily's yesterday, and for a part of her class, she made a bunch of goals for the future. And I was like, maybe I need that class.
Yeah, every year on our birthday, Emily will ask, do you have any goals for the year? No, because I'm still just so confused on what I'm doing in life. How can I set a goal if I don't know if that's where I want to actually go?
But one thing now with everything that's happened here in the last 2 weeks is that it like, well, for one, I don't remember if we talked about this or not in our last episode, but for a long time I've been looking for somewhere other than Minnesota to live because I didn't want to be here. Like I wanted to be doing something, I just didn't know what or where. But now that like all this stuff has happened and it's blown up in our city, it's like I feel like leaving now is like abandoning the city, and I don't want to leave the city at a point when it like needs change and healing. So that's going to be like a very specific decision to actually stay here longer than I thought I would have. But then on top of that, things that I was writing about and studying about, like things I was studying about in school, which ended 4 years ago, and then that I was writing about with like lesser and lesser frequency because fewer and fewer people were reading that stuff over the last 4 years, to the point where I like wasn't writing at all. Like the things I was writing about are the things that are blowing up now and things that need change. And so it's like now I have like this fire to actually like these things actually have meaning. Things that I was writing about need to change now, and it's like I feel like there's some level of like validation that came, or like the cause I was pursuing was righteous, I guess, or like it was the right things to be focusing on and the right things to be calling out. Where I'm at now is that a lot of what was changing and making me pull back from what I was writing about was feeling and recognizing, along with people not, like fewer people reading what I was writing, it felt like, or I was perceiving that actually challenging like societal norms to people's faces wasn't going to be the most effective way to do things, that there needed to be like this slow like sort of touch on one thing, and then once we get people to agree on this one thing, we take like half a step further and then half a step further until finally someday in the future we actually start talking about race. Where it's like, no, we don't have a choice not to. So, and on top of that, I have been learning that my typical stance of engaging with the world, of withdrawing from the world, isn't going to help me get anywhere. Like, it's just, it's part of the reason that I like haven't done all of these things, is because I haven't been willing to actually engage the world on these issues, or like have been worried about what people will think of me as I try to engage with them about these issues. And it's like so much of that is out the window now that in the last 2 weeks all of this stuff has blown up here. And now people are like, well, maybe these are things that we need to start thinking about. So it's like, now I feel like I don't have an excuse anymore to not do these things. So whether I'm able to figure out a way to make money or not, these are things I guess I will continue to focus on and write about. A long-winded statement that I'm sure has been a norm for me.
Yeah, and I think the problem that I have, I'm in kind of the same boat as you. Let me turn my gain down. I seem loud. I changed positions. Now I'm laying on the floor instead of sitting on it. The problem that I have is that I've been so focused on financial stability, and so I do have the concern of doing something knowing that there might not be money involved. That scares me, and I try and run away from things that I'm scared of because I don't like being scared. It's not an emotion I like feeling. So I think that's probably part of the reason why I stuck in physics so long. Because Googled the astronomy, like the average salary in the field of astronomy, it's like $100,000. It's like, well, I can live with that.
I could most certainly live with that as well.
Or then like the switching to animal ecology and like one of my coworkers being like, oh yeah, I'll never get a job in this because it's just like conservation. What can I do with that? And I was like, oh, well, I could do vet school. Vets make a lot of money. I could do that. And now it's in this random field where it's like I could get a job doing something, I don't know. And it scares me to take that jump.
Yeah. I wonder, I feel like I have similar thoughts and concerns, and I wonder if we internalize that from the same place. Or like what it was that we saw that we took that and then internalized that information.
Yeah, we've talked about it a lot in therapy. The therapist is just like, why do you have those thoughts? I don't know. I'm going to therapy for, 4 or 5 years? 5 years? 5 or 6 years? Somewhere between 4 and 6 years. Still just never uncovered where that feeling came from or where those feelings are coming from. My therapist has said, like, Elaina, you're going to be successful. It's like, well, I don't necessarily doubt that. I'm just concerned.
Yeah. Or like statements from people that it gets better eventually. It's like all of the evidence I have does not show that that will be true. Everything that I have done thus far suggests that that may not be the case. But that's even like when I have looked for jobs, like being on a job board, jobs I want aren't going to be on a job board. But then there have been jobs that I've done where it's like, I cannot keep doing this job anymore. I need to find something else. So I would go onto job boards, be disgusted that I wasn't finding jobs I wanted, and then just stop looking at job boards. Whereas why I was looking at job boards for a job I knew wasn't going to be on there is like the whole reason I was doing it was trying to find security when that wasn't even necessarily my greatest concern. Like my bigger concern was doing something I wanted to do than the paycheck I was going to be getting, or like trying to maximize the paycheck I was going to be getting, I guess, or will be maybe someday getting. I can't imagine what $100,000 would look like. That would be I can't imagine what $40,000 would look like.
Oh, I know someone who makes about $40,000 a year, and she is severely in debt still.
But even then, it's like, maybe I could pay off my loans in 10 years.
Instead of 30.
Relying on my government loans to be forgiven 25 years after I graduated. So, yeah. I do remember that when I toured the U of M in their engineering school, one of the selling points for each of their programs was the like average income of people with that who had graduated from those programs. Like that was one of the things in the introductory materials. And almost all of the programs were like $60,000 a year, except for astrophysics, which was like $40,000 a year or something in 2008 dollars.
Yeah. I would love to be making more money than I am. Not even anywhere near to $40,000.
What even is that per hour?
Like 14, somewhere between 14 and 15.
$40,000 a year? Is that what you said? Or is that what you are?
No, I think 40,000 is somewhere between 14 and 15.
Divide by 40 hours a week. Divide by 52 weeks. 1923 an hour.
That's what I said.
Give or take. And that's before taxes. So after taxes, who knows? $30,000 a year. Uncle Sam likes his cash.
Yeah, I make less than that.
I wouldn't mind as much if I felt like it was being used well. But that, for sure, is a conversation for another episode.
Mm-hmm.
If ever on this podcast. Maybe once the election rolls around. Hey everybody, my name's Eric.
And I'm Elaina.
And we are the co-hosts of the 2 out of 3 podcast.
Yep.
And we've come back together today to talk to you guys about our Patreon page.
Anyone who's familiar with the podcasting world knows that podcasts are mostly self-funded productions. Patreon is a way for us to connect with patrons who will help fund our productions with us.
So if you're watching this video on Patreon, you're already here, so go ahead and take a look around. If not, there are 2 different ways you can find us. You can go either to patreon.com/2 out of 3 podcast or to 2out of3podcast.com. That's patreon.com/2 out of 3 podcast or 2 out of 3 podcast.com. Now back to the show.
Yep.
Do you have any moments or any achievements that you feel like were major successes in your life thus far?
Major successes in my life. I feel like a lot of my big successes, like I felt they were big, and then I look back, it's like, it wasn't that big of a deal. Like graduating high school with, I graduated with high honors, and at the time I was like, oh, this is such a big deal. And looking back, it's like, this is not that big of a deal. Like I don't care. I think one of my favorite successes so far is that I took IB history in high school, and I think I got a 4 out of 7 on the IB exam, which meant that I tested out of 300 level history credits here at Iowa State, which just isn't helpful at all, but I'm proud of myself for it. So I appeared to do well in that class, but I struggled through most of it. I had a hard time keeping up with it. But I did it, and I did better than a lot of people. And I did well enough that my college recognized how well I did and said, hey, here are these 3 credits for your hard work in high school.
I remember one moment in calc in high school, we had a test and I was the one who set the curve. Like the test was out of 41 points and I got a 40 out of 41. And people were like, dang, why'd you set the curve so high? And I was like, you guys do not understand how incredible it is that I got this high on this test. Some of mine, like getting through graduate school was definitely a success. But there are other things like my last jazz band concert in high school when I had a drum solo that actually went well because I had actually prepared for it.
All of my solos have been so bad.
Shocked the world with my drum solo. Got a standing ovation.
Yeah,
the last song of the last concert. It's like a freaking Rocky movie. It was amazing.
Yeah, Dad started like screaming.
Yeah. So there are things like that too, or like running cross country, or even actually doing that, because someone of my body type does not typically become a cross country runner. But one of the things I liked about cross country was that since I wasn't good enough to compete against other people, I was primarily competing against myself. And so success for me was being better than I had been in either the race before or the week before or whatever it was. And
I think
turns out I actually enjoyed running. Who knew?
I think one of my biggest, I don't know, it was just kind of personal growth. One of my biggest personal growths that I'm proud of is that when I played softball all throughout elementary school and junior high, I would get so down on myself all the time if I didn't do something right or if I felt I could do better. And I was always just so mad at my performance. And then when it came my senior year of high school and I was playing JV, not even varsity, just JV, at the end of the year banquet, everyone was like, Elaina always had such a positive attitude. And it was just such a big growth moment for me because I remember always being so mad at myself. And then all of a sudden, senior year is just like, oh, I missed the ball. There'll be another one. I can swing again. And I don't know when that change happened in my thoughts, I guess. But it did. It was nice to see that other people noticed it too, because I don't know if I would have noticed it unless people had pointed it out.
Yeah.
I was an inspiration. I was also 4 or 5 years older than everyone on my team. I was like 5 years older than everyone on my team. So, I mean, I guess looking back, I'm glad that I was on JV and not varsity, because, I mean, it was a young team either way, no matter which level you were on, but I feel like I helped influence some people with my unexpected positivity.
Yeah.
I do not view myself as a positive person. Mom's called me a negative Nelly for many years.
I definitely have my own cynical and nihilistic sides. They can come out. I don't know what you feel your negativity can come out as, manifests as.
Just kind of blah, everything is bad. I guess in some sense it's nihilism. I remember when I told you once that people in softball told me that I had a positive attitude, you literally laughed out loud. Because I am, at least in the family, not known for being a particularly positive person.
I don't remember doing that, but I'm sorry I did.
Oh, you hear that crack? That was my hip. Just my entire body is falling apart.
Typically just my ankles crack.
Oh, I can make like everything crack. Sometimes my elbow locks and I'll have to like jam it forward really fast for it to like crack and unlock. Those are painful.
I still need to get new running shoes.
Oh, I've needed new shoes for several months.
I realized I needed them right around the time everything shut down. And now I haven't been over to the running shoe store since it opened again.
When I was home for Christmas, my doctor told me that I am wearing the wrong shoe size and I need to go up half a size. And I just never went to the store. So I don't have the money for that.
I don't need to go up a size. I need wider shoes. Like, that's not specific to these shoes. These shoes are old, so I need new shoes no matter what. But I definitely need to get some wider shoes.
Yeah, I went into the doctor and he was like, "What's wrong?" And I was like, "Well, my toenail is like digging into my toe." He was like, he looked at my shoes and was like, "Yeah, I actually used to sell shoes and it looks like you're wearing the wrong size." Great. And so my toenail hurt because my shoe was pushing on my foot. And so the like big toe was kind of scrunching up and then the toenail was just digging into it, like growing into it.
That sounds terrible.
Soak your feet 2 times a day for 5 minutes every day for 30 days. I did that.
It's like when I was told to use a pumice stone to get the callus off my big toe. I did it a couple times at the start 2 years ago. That's one of the things about, I think that callus started developing wearing cleats playing frisbee, but then got worse wearing work boots, working at undisclosed shipping company, where I was on my feet a lot. I wonder how much walking I did there.
Oh, I have a fun blister right now. Cause
Blisters aren't typically fun. I have one story of a fun blister, but you can continue yours.
Yeah, well, not yesterday Saturday, but the Saturday before. I went to a protest in Des Moines, and that day I walked 5 miles. And I looked at my foot the next day, and I just had this huge bulbous blister. And it was annoying. And then one night, the night that I couldn't sleep, literally almost a week later, I decided to pop it because its bulbousness was too much. And now it's finally getting better. Because it's on the back of my heel, so it keeps rubbing against my shoe. So even though I would put a Band-Aid and duct tape over it, it would still rub against my shoe and just not get better. Now that I popped it, it's less prone to rubbing. I sent one of my friends a lot of blister videos. She probably hates me.
That sounds terrible. My blister story, when I lived in Denver, the first church I was at, I helped play music on the worship team. And I wasn't good enough to be a drummer on the drum set because we had enough drummers already, so I did auxiliary percussion, which primarily meant I was playing a shaker and a tambourine. Super fun, super technical. Anywho, I played tambourine enough that I started developing a blister and then a callus from playing the tambourine. So if you take your hand and you form it into a fist and then look at it from the side where your thumb is, like there is a fold right below the knuckle on your pointer finger. And I developed a callus across that fold. So the callus, whenever my hand was like in a fist or like holding a tambourine, the callus was connected, but then whenever I extended my hand out, there was a gap in the callus because it was forming over the fold. It was the strangest thing. Now I'm just looking at my hand.
Yeah, in regards to heel blisters, one of my favorite tricks that I learned in marching band is if you're in,
Ugh.
well, we used it for marching shoes because the marching shoes were uncomfortable on everyone. But if you're walking in any sort of shoe that might rub on your heel, if you just duct tape your heels, the duct tape will stop the shoe from rubbing on your heel. The shoe will just rub on the duct tape.
Yep.
It's one of my favorite life hacks.
I have like 3M makes this like moleskin type athletic tape that I use for stuff like that. When I wore cleats playing frisbee, my like the balls of my feet would get just like so rubbed so raw that I like had to try and figure something out. So I started double socking, and then I started taping, and I would like tape my foot and then double sock, and I would wear through the tape every single time just from my feet rubbing against my shoe as I was running. It was crazy, and it was painful.
Yeah, so I have silver duct tape. It's not like the normal gray, it's actually shiny. And so I duct taped my heels before I went to a different protest. And when I got home that night, I could see that some of the shiny had rubbed off the silver where the shoe was rubbing. It's like, that could have been my heel. But it wasn't. It was the duct tape. I still had a giant bulbous blister from before, but blister's gone now. Well, it's still there. It's just not round. If anyone wants to hear more blister stories, that's the only one I've got. I could just tell it to you again.
This has been Blisters. This has been Blisters with Eric and Elaina.
We've come full circle.